What is up, nation? AJ Riley here with Paul Rochon for another episode of Beyond the Box, talking football. And specifically this week, Paul, we are talking about our Detroit Lions. Before we get into that, I want to remind you to like and subscribe to all of our social media platforms so you can get the latest content from DetroitSportsNation.com. And Paul, tonight, it seems as though the Lions are a trending team. Not even trending, a trendy team. And Vegas and the media seem to be at odds about this. Vegas has them at 6.5 wins, and literally about any media outlet has them as sleepers, potential fringe playoff teams. Who else knows what they can add to the Lions aura after this draft? But my question to you, and where we want to spend most of our time tonight, is, are you buying it?
You know, it's wild because I'm not used to the Lions being media darlings. It's a weird place to be. And I think it comes from a few places. The media in general has been well receptive of what the Lions are doing since they canned Quinn and Patricia, right? Like they most of the media was less skeptical than I was about the Brad Holmes hire. And most of the media liked what we did in the first two drafts, regardless of what we personally felt about it. And those are your building blocks of a rebuilding team. They get a complete pass for last year. They were expected to be bad. They bottomed out the rebuild, new head coaching staff. The media wasn't worried about that. And then so you have kind of a perfect storm of there's nowhere to go but up. The media universally loved our draft class. And I know me and you didn't necessarily feel the same way. We do think that there could be a lot of players out of it. But they love the draft class. And they like Dan Campbell's a likable guy, right? Like he's not like Matt Patricia. I think we've talked about this before, that he gets a longer leash because whether he has the acumen or not, he's another thing that's well received. And so I think people just look at a team that bottomed out. They think that there's going to be an influx of talent because of the draft. And it's crazy. So the Ringer, Bill Simmons outfit, right? He has the Bill Simmons podcast. He was on there with Warren Sharp. And they were talking about sleeper teams, maybe teams that could win a division if you were surprised. Warren Sharp comes out and says, if Green Bay kind of falls apart or things go awry, maybe the Lions could win that division. I'm like, I don't know, man. This is a little wild. Bleacher Report, Lions could be the NFL's most surprising team, right? NFL.com, Cynthia Freeland. Detroit Lions, top sleeper team in the NFL. Mina Kimes, who I am a massive fan of, one of my favorite sports analysts, I think, the best personalities out there that cover sports, absolutely has half a brain, which is few and far in between. She says, God help me, I'm drinking the Honolulu Blue Koolaid. Now I'm going to give her a little bit of a pass because it is delicious Kool-Aid. And it's very easy to overindulge on. And she obviously works a lot with Dan Orlovsky, and he is always glass half full when it comes to the Lions in every single way. Always.
But did you? Because he said after the draft, he was like, "Watch out for Detroit." I mean, immediately at like the day after the draft, he's always going to be in the Lions' favor. Which is fine.
The only time I've ever heard Dan Orlovsky give a little shade to the Lions is when he's talking about Stafford and the Lions letting him down career-wise. That's the only time I've ever heard him really get on the Lions. But
he's also not wrong about that. And what's crazy is...
I'm painting a picture here. And this is limited, right? No, you're fine. This is just a small sample. But this really has been universally, this offseason has been this acclaim for the Lions. It's been, and not necessarily, nobody thinks the Lions are Super Bowl contenders, but everyone is talking about this team as a team that should flirt with 500, if not be a fringe playoff team. And that's like, wow. And then you look at Vegas, and there are 6.5 wins. And generally, Vegas, especially win totals, you kind of err toward the middle, right? So a 6.5 win team, like that's getting pushed a little towards the win. If they put it at 4 wins, that puts them in a lot of danger, right? That exposes them a lot. And a lot of people are going to hammer the over. And it's hard to win less than 4 games in a season, just as an example. So if the really bad teams, their win totals get pushed toward the middle. Same with the really good teams. Like, you're not going to see many win totals like 13 games, right? That's not something you really see because they skew toward the middle. So realistically, Vegas thinks the Lions are a 5 or 6 win team this year. And yet the media thinks that they're like a 7, 8, 9, 10 win team this year, right? Like, I would say like 8 and 9 is like the median, would be my guess. Maybe 9 and 8. People think the Lions are going to make this huge jump. AJ, did enough change for us to make this large of a jump? Or are you looking and you like, listen, Vegas knows, all right? Vegas absolutely knows. Forget the media.
Well, see, to go back to your original point, I don't know how to feel about this, because I'm thinking that, one, either hell has frozen over, the world has flipped upside down, or I'm in some kind of twilight zone where reality as I knew it no longer exists, because I cannot for the life of me remember a time in my years of existence, and I will not say how many it is, the Lions being spoken of favorably. And it's not like they're being spoken of in a way that's, this is the team to put your money on to win the Super Bowl, because that would be a losing proposition. But when you're talking about words like surprising, sleeper, national media pundits drinking the Honolulu blue Koolaid, using our own terms, that's a big deal. And it's crazy to, like, it almost feels like uncomfortable in a way, because if those expectations aren't met, then it's same old Lions, right? Then it's it is what it is. It's just Detroit. We didn't really expect them to do well. You asked if I think enough has changed, and I can't answer that yet. The reason why I can't answer that yet is because everything about 2022 is speculation. And I understand that that's kind of a cop-out answer. But I will say the one thing that I'm grateful hasn't changed, and I think will make a difference, is Dan Campbell. I will root for him. I will continue to root for him. I expect him to get better as a head coach and a game manager and things of that nature. And I expect this team to be, at minimum, 6.5 wins. And I've told you that. I said that on our last show. I had them at like 8 wins, right? Maybe plus or minus 1. Just because I like what they've done. Again, going back to our draft talk, not necessarily thrilled with every move that they've made, but it seems like the right pieces are being put in place. Now, will they continue to put those right pieces in place, or will they continue to hold on to older pieces, a la number 16? That will make the difference of whether the conversation continues to be favorable towards the Detroit Lions in the years to come or not. Do you think enough has changed?
Well, we just did our win totals last week, and I had the Lions at 6 and 11. So obviously, I am siding much closer to Vegas than I am the media. This is not a win total that I would bet. If fans were going to bet it, they're clearly going to pound the over. We have seen the pulse of the fans. We have seen the pulse of the people. They absolutely think this team is going to be over that 6-win threshold. I have not talked to many people outside of our little group that actually thinks the Lions are going to win like less than 6 games or even 6 games. Most people think they're going to be over that mark, which I think is being optimistic, which there's nothing wrong with it, especially as fans, to be optimistic. This is a team you root for. If you go into every season thinking you're going to win 4 or 5 games, like, that's a miserable experience, even if you're right. And listen, I know being a Lions fan has at times been a very miserable experience, but I don't blame the people that have a little bit of optimism. Hope springs eternal for a reason. But you said it's kind of a cop-out because you said, I don't know yet. It's hard to see. There's so many changes, so many moving parts. This team is young. And I don't think that's a cop-out at all because we're not in the business, especially on this show, Beyond the Box, of just making hot takes, of judging things on very limited sample sizes or giant projections, because this team theoretically should have a pretty wide range of outcomes just based on the unknowns. It reminds me of last year's college football season with the in-state programs, both Michigan and Michigan State, that there was so much new for both teams. You really didn't know how they were going to be. Like you had kind of an expectation, but there was so many moving parts, especially coming off the COVID season, that you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. That's how I feel about this season to an extent. But at the same time, I look at, we still have Dan Campbell, who should grow a little bit. He was a rookie head coach last year. But Dan Campbell and now our tight ends coach, who's been elevated, they're going to call the plays together. Well, I wasn't impressed with the play calling last year. And we didn't bring in a new play caller. So I don't think that's changing in a positive way. That's still a concern. We know how we feel about Jared Goff. And that's one place where I think we're in lockstep with most fans. There is a section of fans out there, the extra optimistic ones. They look at the end of the season. They look at, Jared Goff went to a Super Bowl. There's a small but somewhat vocal section of fans that actually think Jared Goff can be an above-average quarterback in the NFL, which I think is a starter. And I think that's just berserk. That's crazy. But it's fine. It's all right. Jared Goff has not changed. We still have the same guy under center. He's not very good. He's not going to elevate this team. What can change? The offensive line can stay healthy and actually be a strength of this team. We did add Jameson Williams, and while I didn't like the pick, and we also added DJ Chark in free agency, while I didn't like the pick, and while I don't think receiver is the most impactful position in the NFL, we had a pretty bad receiving unit last year. This is not great. And he's going to catch passes. As soon as he gets healthy, which could be at the earlier end of the season, we really don't know, more of the unknown that you talked about. But when he gets healthier, he is going to be good. I told you, I think by the end of this season, he should ascend to the number one receiver in this pass catching group. TJ Hawkinson is a piece that, of course, I like very much. So if you combine that with the O-line, DeAndre Swift continue to improve, right? He's a solid running back. You would think that we had first-time play caller last year in Dan Campbell. It wasn't the plan. He took over play calling duties halfway through the season, say. He should grow into that role. They should be able to install more of the offense that he wants to see. Having more playmakers on offense should help them have more of a diverse offense. Having that healthier offensive line should let them dial up more downfield passes, more play action. You hope. But this is a lot of hope. And things have to improve. But then you look at the defensive side. Bottom of the league in sacks. Pretty much bottom of the league in pressure rate if we weren't bottom of the league. Worst by a wide margin in third down defense getting off the field. The defense was horrible. I mean, look at games like the Ravens, where we kept the Ravens in check all game, but we really didn't. Hollywood Brown kept the Ravens in check by beating the brakes off our secondary and then dropping wide open passes. Yeah. And then dropping wide open passes, which I like the kid. He had one of the worst games I've ever seen from a receiver. In the worst way, because he did everything but catch the ball. He could have had like a 250-yard, 3-touchdown day if he just held onto the ball. But that stalled drives. Our defense kind of held on. And near the end of the game, we were in position to win the game. But was it 4th and 20? Was it 4th and 20?
It was.
It was 4th and 20. We got at least a sack, maybe consecutive sacks. We had them in 4th and 20, and our defense didn't get off the field. They just didn't get off the field. And they gave up a bomb, the only thing that could get the Ravens even close enough to even think about kicking a field goal, and then they hit the longest walk-off field goal ever in NFL history because they got Justin Tucker. How much did our defense improve this offseason?
Well, that might be the... I don't want
to. That depends on rookies, right?
Well, right, it does, and that's where I was going, right? That they seem to have clearly addressed that. You know, yes, they took Jameson Williams 12 when they could have taken other defensive players, but it is what it is at this point. They still made some good moves defensively through the draft. And so maybe that pass rate or that rush rate goes up a little bit higher. Maybe that, that third down efficiency as far as defense is concerned improves, because, like, let's be honest, it can't get worse, right? It cannot get worse. It was pretty bad. So I don't know, but the hope, I mean, that's what we all live on, right? Is hope. And we want to live on hope. And we need to live on hope because we have been hopeless for so many years. And the reality of all of these different outlets being like, keep your eye on Detroit. Keep your eye on Detroit. They could be surprising. They could be, sleeper. That's never been words that are associated with our team. And it's got to give you some kind of optimism going into the season. Are they going to run the table and are they going to make noise in the playoffs? Listen, I will be the most shocked person if somehow they find their way into the playoffs. And heaven forbid they win a playoff game this year, because you talk about not expecting something and just being hit in the face with it. I won't even know what to do with myself. But when we talk and we
sign
hear those
Dan
things
Campbell to a lifetime contract if we win a
literally,
playoff game this season.
Literally a lifetime contract. But when we talk about those things and we hear what the media, it's hard not to buy into that because of the hope that you have. You know what I'm like? It's easy to hear somebody from a Ringer or, a Bleacher Report or an ESPN or other outlet go, keep your eye on Detroit. They're going to be surprising. And the Honolulu Blue crowd going, yes, finally, we got this, right? And it's just like, it tickles the ears. It makes that hope rise even further. And you just want it to be true once. That's it. That's all Lions fans are looking for, right? Just let it be true once. Throw out the stats. Forget what the numbers say. Data doesn't matter. What matters is they're speaking our language. And the hope that we have is being talked about. And it's something to look forward to. And look, there's plenty of issues with the team. But the one thing that you cannot say is that it's not going to be interesting to see what happens holding on to that hope.
I mean, it'll be very interesting, but again, it's the unknowns, right? I mean, the defense is the thing. As frustrating as the offense was, as frustrating as Jared Goff is, as frustrating as the play calling is, the defense is the place where you could kind of hope to see the most improvement. But at the same time, we didn't do, and this isn't, listen, we're in a rebuild. I don't want to go out and do it. I don't want to be involved in a spending spree. I don't want to do what the Bengals did last season and go buy an entire defense, right? Because we're not there.
Or the Jaguars this offseason when they just threw cash at everything.
And the Jaguars are a great example of what not to do. Because although in their defense, they at least feel like they have a quarterback in place, where the Lions don't. Because they drafted a generational talent.
But we go back to team building, right? We go back to team building all the time on this.
And they're doing it all wrong.
You never start with your quarterback. You never start with your quarterback to build a team.
Well, in their defense, you had, that's when they had the number one pick, and that dude was available. Like you're not getting Trevor Lawrence.
Okay, that sure, fine, I get that. But at the same time, that also does not allow you to build your team properly. Because now you have
it makes it more difficult.
It makes it more difficult because you've pushed fast forward on the rebuild. You now have to go and throw a ton of money at different things in order to make sure that you get Trevor Lawrence at his cheapest. Now,
and
again,
what's funny.
There's unknowns with him too, right?
Like, yeah. Of course there is. I mean, he had a rough rookie season, but I don't. Not
he also had no offensive line, and he also had to deal with
Urban Meyer catastrophe.
Yeah, disaster.
It's funny that you bring that up because Dylan and I, on the big picture, we talked about this just last week. It's kind of what the Chargers are doing, and I think it's a questionable decision when you have Denver, when you have Kansas City, when you have the Raiders still, right? They could finish fourth in that division, and no one would be shocked. The Chargers are trying to win now with Herbert on his rookie deal before they have to pay him, but it's a dangerous gamble. The Jags, I think, are just trying to be not like picking number one or in even the top 10 for a few years. Like they're all over the place, man, and they don't have a good direction. They just don't. So but that's exactly, I brought up the Jags because that's what I don't want the Lions to do. They have to be patient with this.
Yeah, and that's where
that's why I'm not mad that we didn't spend the money on defense. That's what, when I say we didn't do a lot to address the defense in free agency, I don't want them to. It's not an issue. We're still rebuilding. But at the same time, when we're projecting this season and we're talking about being a sleeper team this season, where are those improvements going to come from? So you look at, okay, let's look at the pass rush. We brought in Aiden Hutchinson, who is going to be an instant impact rookie. He's going to start as a rookie, whether it's day one or a little bit of the season. I would assume it's going to be day one, but we'll see.
It'll be
I don't know how they're going to bring him along. Barring injury, of course. What kind of impact is he going to have? We talked about pressures are the most important thing. The sack number I'm not as worried about. He's got to get to the quarterback. He's got to generate pressure, especially on passing downs and third downs, right? Get into those second and third and long situations, generate pressure. Do your job as a number one overall pick. But it's going to take him time to acclimate to the NFL, you would assume. But hopefully, I know you're projecting a lot with the rookie, but hopefully you get some there. Romeo Okwara, who had a couple decent seasons for the Lions. Last year, he missed most of the season. He only played a few games last year. Is he going to come and be, I think we're paying him about $10 million a year, which I don't think is bad for what you hope that he's bringing to the table. Is he going to continue to be an edge rushing factor that we didn't have last year despite him being on the team? So that'll help. If you could get between them, if you could get like a decent pass rate and 15 sacks between the two of them, give me 15 sacks, that would be a huge boon toward this team taking a step forward on defense.
For sure.
In the secondary. Can you get anything out of Jeff Okudah? People have written him off. But can you get anything out of him? He was struggled as a rookie, but all rookie corners do, right? Last year he missed. He had an injury. Was it his Achilles? It was his Achilles, wasn't it? The worst, especially for the position he plays. That's why I think he's going to end up at safety, I think. It's going to be so hard for him to stick at corner. And then what do you get out of the Pascals of the world, the Kirbys of the world? I have no idea with this coaching staff. I would think, so I think they're still going to try him because it's too early to write him off at corner. And unlike me, when I see Achilles, I say that athlete's explosion is done and we are talking about reshaping their career. That's me. I can just about guarantee our staff does not view it that way. And even Achilles, they're going to give him run at corner. If he continues to struggle or they have a bigger need at safety, I expect that transition to happen eventually. But who knows? Maybe he shocks the world and he's a competent corner, which we need. We need secondary play.
They did sign the kid from the Ravens, though, to play safety, right? His name's escaping me. Was it the Ravens? They signed a safety this offseason. Do you know?
We signed what I would consider a backup level safety. For this team, he's going to be a starter. But he's not someone he's not someone who's a playoff team that I want starting.
But maybe it's that you bring him in, you draft the kid from Illinois, and you give them run at each other to see who's going to beat each other out, and then you've got, rotation
I'm a big fan of Kirby, but listen, he was picked 97, right? He's not a guy that's expected to come in and contribute right away. And the Lions did not sign Deshaun Elliott. They traded for him, I believe.
Okay.
With the Ravens.
We didn't give up. Him in.
We did, and we didn't give up. We didn't give up a lot. I don't remember what it was. It was like day 3 picks. So
and then you look at the other corner, right? Is it Owuzie? Is that how you say his name?
Oruwariye.
Okay, I'll get it right next time. Oruwariye. That's a mouthful, man. But he played a good corner.
He was very, he was, and that was one of the picks I liked very much last year. I like the upside there. I think we got him in the 5th round, and he was somebody that was considered kind of possibly a day 2 prospect out of Penn State. He's a good player. He could be a good player, right? But
like the pieces could be there for a good secondary.
Kind of. So here's the thing. Here's the trap I don't want to fall into. We have a lot of players that showed promise. So Oruwari is a perfect example. He's a guy that showed promise as a rookie that you're like, that could be a building block. But this is a trap that a lot of people fall in. A lot of players like Oruwari that play like he did his rookie season, by year 3, they're still playing the same. And that's where, at that point, he's now a negative to your team. As a rookie, he's a promising rookie that could develop into a plus-level starter. If he's still playing that way in the next couple of years, that's a problem. He has to take the next step. And some of these guys are not going to take that step. So to take the next step as a defense, we're relying on growth all over the place. We're relying on Deshaun Elliott, who we brought in that we gave up a day 3 pick for, coming and being a starting caliber safety. We're relying on rookies coming in and being decent level contributors, if not high level contributors, their rookie seasons. We're relying on guys coming off injury, Okudah to come in and play a good role. Okudah to do something he hasn't done and be an at least average player. Okwara to come in and regain the form that he had before injury, when he was somebody that wasn't expected to be a plus level player before he kind of popped off for the Lions.
Yeah.
You are so much projection and hope to take the next step as a defense. And like the rest of this team, listen, there's nowhere to go but up. Our defense was horrible. Our whole team won 3 games last year. The offense was a complete mess. There's nowhere to go but up. But when we're talking about listen, that's why I have us doubling our win total and getting to 6 wins. That's going up quite a bit. But when we talk about being a 500 caliber team, which you can't go 500, of course, in a 17-game schedule, but flirting with 500, 8 and 9, 9 and 7, somewhere around there. Someone that could flirt with a dark horse playoff spot. There's an extra wildcard spot now. When we talk about that jump is a lot more. And to me, it's more than a leap of faith. It really is kind of being a little bit of buzzed off the Koolaid and taking a leap of faith and just being, it almost is like people see the Lions doing things that make sense for the most part now. In the Lions, what they're doing doesn't make them a laughing stock right now. Like for many years, especially recently, before this new regime came in, so many just questionable moves that you're like, what in the world?
Drafting 3 receivers guys in
like
the first
Jelani
round.
Tavai. Well, that was a long time ago. I'm talking more recent history.
I mean,
recent. Drafting guys like Jelani Tavai in the 2nd round. And people look at that and they're just projection. Like, what are you doing? The questionable things that Matt Patricia's done, the way that Bob Quinn ran this team. And you
but
look
it's interesting. It's interesting. Where did Bob Quinn come from?
The Patriots, of course.
And who did Bill Belichick take in the first round this year? Like they do that kind of stuff all the time. You know what I mean?
It's
like
when
that's so on brand.
Upside. It is on brand. So I've talked about this many times before. The Patriots are actually not a good drafting team.
No,
and
I
didn't love the Bob Quinn hire. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I was willing to go. And this is a theme of mine, apparently, that I don't love the Lions hires. I'm trying to be optimistic. I am. But
I promise you, at some point, I will get you to say something positive about this team. At some point. And when that happens... I have said
plenty of positive things.
I mean, you say them
I love the Aiden Hutchinson pick. Yeah, I love the Kirby pick.
Okay, you know what? A blind squirrel would have picked Aiden Hutchinson at 2. Like...
Listen.
Come on, man.
Martinez in the 5th round. 5th or 6th?
I think it was 6th, actually, if I remember correctly.
Great pick, okay? I'm not all negative about this team. It's a great pick.
Right, but you're talking about players. You're not talking about Brad Holmes.
Kirby Joseph.
You're not talking about pick, though. You're not talking about Dan Campbell. At some point during this season, when we are on this show, or if you're hosting the show, so who knows what's going to happen in the fall. But what I'm telling you is there will be a positive thing that is said about Dan Campbell, and when that happens, the record button is hitting stop. I'm closing the computer.
It'll probably
game is over. Because if you ever say something
season
positive about a coach or you say something about a GM, I will know that hell has frozen over, that the world is ending, and it's just time to go upstairs, sit back, and relax and watch it happen, because everything around me will be burning at that point. Because
they just have to do things. They have to do things the right way. That's all they got to do. It's all I'm
hold on a second. They don't have to do things the right way. They have to do things the Paul way. Let's be very clear about that. It's not the right way necessarily. It's the Paul way. Because if it's not in Paul's mind, and it's not the right thing according to his mind, which his mind is brilliant. Paul legitimately is one of the smartest men that I know. Don't let it go to your head.
I appreciate that.
But if it is not your way, it is the wrong way. And so I cannot wait until I get you to go, you know that Dan Campbell? He did a pretty good job. And I'm going to be like,
it's going to come. Over. You're not going to like it, but it's going to come during Hard Knocks, because there's going to be some moments.
Which
he's
will
going to
be
be a star, I think.
He's going to be
I think Dan Campbell's going to be a star. See, the thing is, I think Dan Campbell is probably an exceptional practice coach. I bet he is. He came from an organization in the Saints that was very well run. Sean Payton is very organized. That These practices, they're not going to be a joke, right? They're going to be structured. There's not going to be a lot of wasted downtime. And he's a motivator. Guys want to play for him. And he's a character. His sound bites alone are fantastic. But they're not fantastic in a way that I laugh at him. They're fantastic, and he's a great football guy that I would love to play for.
Yes, and I think that's the beautiful thing about the guy that is leading the Detroit Lions is he is a motivator, but even more than that, he's the type of guy that, to use a war metaphor, would charge into battle first and bring you along with him. And that the players sense that, and that people notice that, and that is, from experience, the type of guy that you want to play with, the type of guy that you want to play for. The X's and O's, they can take care of themselves to a certain extent. He has to game plan. He's got to get the right people around him to help him game plan and to deal with that. His job is to continue to build the culture that it seems like he's building. And I think, to go back to our original point of this whole thing, right? The surprise, the sleeper, the dark horse kind of thing in the NFL, it's because people see a shift in the attitude. It's because people see a shift in the culture. Is that tangible? Is that something you can put data points on? It's not, but it is something that you can see and you can feel. And when it comes to Dan Campbell, if the Lions are going to have any success at all in the coming years, and we hope and pray and think that they will, it's going to be because of him and the players and the people that surround him.
Well, maybe. Because he's got a couple years. He's got a couple years, and I don't know. Brad Holmes could outlast. Brad Holmes may get another coaching hire. Maybe. Because he ain't going
to need one, because they're going to win a playoff game this year, and Dan Campbell's getting a lifetime contract. You said it yourself.
I mean, nothing. I shouldn't say nothing, but few things would make me as happy. If we want to, it would just be such an incredible. The Lions never shock positively, ever. There's never, the Lions have never had
except for when the media is talking to them,
right?
Right, that's true. That's true.
Right, but that's never. They've never come out of nowhere and been, oh my God, this team is so good. How did this happen? That's never ever happened. It's always been the opposite at worst. I mean, just, oh my God, how is this team this bad? And then a lot of times they were just, right? I mean, what are the best seasons that we've had? I mean, there's two that come to mind. You got 2011 and 2014. And both
two
of those
playoff games that they should have won. Two playoff games that they should have won.
No, not in 11. Not in 11. Not against the Saints.
If you remember back to that game, though, and this is way off topic. If our defense
didn't give up 40 points.
Well, but hold on a second. There was a pivotal moment. I think it was early fourth quarter or something like that. Drew Brees terribly overthrew a receiver. And I think it was the corner or the safety at the time. His last name is Barry. not the good one from Kansas City, but the one that came to Detroit. Literally, ball in his hands, and he dropped
Berry,
it.
Right?
Yeah, and that entirely,
Berry,
like that was the moment right there that they lost that game. And then you get the whole entire tragedy that occurs in Dallas. Oh man, I lived in Dallas at that time, and I was so mad.
It's Aaron Berry this way.
Yeah, it was. But those were both winnable playoff games, in my opinion. They were in both of those games.
Our defense was. They were in them because Stafford threw for a gazillion yards and touchdowns, and
Sam Martin doesn't.
Our offense was one-dimensional. Our offense was one-dimensional once Javid Best went down, and our defense was not good, man. It was not good. 2014, the right coach could have taken that team to the Super Bowl. The right coach. Honest to God. I mean, but we didn't have the right coach, and we had one of the worst play callers in NFL history. And it hard capped the ceiling of the team, and it killed us. It absolutely killed us. I mean,
but we are not here to reminisce. We are not here to reminisce. We're here to talk about
the current team, which is completely different people.
Completely different people.
It sucks. It's so hard to just talk about this team without the baggage of the past. Like you can't.
But I'm going to challenge you to start doing
like a real normal football team. I generally do, but it's always haunted by the ghosts of Christmas past.
Yeah.
You just can't get past it. Really, the ghosts of Thanksgiving past and the Lions.
Yeah,
it's tough, man. It's tough.
It
being
is
a Lions
tough.
Fan.
But no, here's the deal,
Dan
right?
Campbell. What worries me, something that you said that I want to touch on, is you talked about like it's not going to be necessarily the X's and O's for him, and that's what scares me. Because Dan Campbell's calling plays. And I know it's collaborative with Ben Johnson, the tight end coach, who is now the offensive coordinator. But it is about X's and O's when you're calling plays. And what concerns me is I don't think that's his bread and butter. I think he needs to be a CEO type head coach. And if Ben Johnson is not good at, and I don't know, Ben Johnson may be a hidden gem and we might have found the next great play caller in the NFL. I don't know. We don't know until we see the product on the field.
So we're not going to make a judgment on that until then.
Yet.
That's what I said.
If the product, if the offensive product and the play calling continues to leave a lot, I know it does, continues to leave a lot desired this season, what I need to see from Dan Campbell is I need to see him do the big boy NFL head coach thing, and I need to see him go out next offseason and get a real offensive coordinator.
Right.
And if we have those issues on offense this season, and if we do not make a change after the season, that is a red flag on the tenure of Dan Campbell, that he's not willing, no matter how good his intentions are, that he's not willing to make those tough decisions and truly do what needs to be done to put everybody in the best place to succeed. And that's and I'm not saying that's going to happen.
I'm going to challenge you on that though real quick. I'm going to challenge you on that, though, real quick, because he kind of made that decision last year when he was like, Anthony Lynn, see you later. I'm going to take this over, and we're gonna fail or succeed on my back as a leader. Now, here's the thing with Dan Campbell. It's a double-edged sword in a way, right? Because he is responsible for the success of the team. So he might bear that responsibility like he took on with the offensive coordinator position last year. But at the same time, a mark of a good leader is somebody who surrounds himself with people who are proficient where you're deficient, right? And so when I make a statement, I say for him, like, he's really good at the motivating and the culture building and things like that, not maybe necessarily at the X's and O's. I've got to expect that as a leader, he's going to surround himself with the people who are better at the X's and O's. And we thought that might have been Anthony Lynn because we thought that was a pretty decent offensive coordinator hire coming from the Chargers, right?
It seemed like we could have gotten realistically.
Okay, so again, there you go with your tongue-in-cheek positivity. But anyway, we think that was going to be a good move. It's not working out. He makes the call. He's like, all right, you're out. I'm going to call the plays for better or worse and get us through this season. Now he's promoted Ben Johnson. So we'll see what happens with that. But I fully expect him to surround himself. He seems like the type of guy that's like a delegator in a way, right? Like, this is what I'm good at. This is what you're good at. Let's make it work. And if he has to bear the ultimate responsibility, he will. That's why, like, was it great that he took over offensive play calling? No, probably not last year. But at least he took it on himself to do so as the leader of the organization.
See, and I look at this in textbook me, right? In the less favorable light.
Of course.
Where you point this out as an
pessimist.
Example of him. I'm the eternal realist. And if you look at the Lions the last many years, of course you're going to look pessimistic if you've been realistic, because they have not done well. But the problem I have with it is it's not that, he went and took responsibility for it. To me, he panicked mid-year of his rookie season because an offense that was never going to be good, with a quarterback that is not good, and an offensive line that was brutalized by injury, didn't perform. And he made a panic move and fired a guy who was way more qualified to call plays than he was, and said, you know what, I'll do it myself, despite having no play calling history ever at any level. Not even in high school did this man ever call plays as a coach. So I look at this and I say, this guy panicked in the heat of the battle when things were going wrong, didn't trust his own hires. He brought Lynn in and didn't even give him a full season when, again, the expectation should not have been high for the offense, especially given the injury issues we had. Lack of pass catchers, lack of offensive linemen, lack of good quarterback play. I mean, Jared Goff was objectively horrible no matter what plays you were calling for in the first half of the season. You can't pin that on Anthony Lynn. You can't. So to me, I don't look at it as a guy taking responsibility. I look at it as a guy that maybe his rookie season was feeling the pressure, feeling the heat, and made a decision to say, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself. And then, he absolutely is. It did not pay off. You knock it off. It is not paid off.
The offense got better and they won games.
The offense got better because they got healthier and they got more in tune with the system. The play calling did not improve.
That's Dan Campbell, man.
It didn't.
That's Dan Campbell.
And this is what concerns me, is I'm not sure that Dan Campbell believes in the way that he wants to run this offense. He absolutely fully believes in it, or he wouldn't be doing it. He's not that kind of guy. And while I respect that he's absolutely the kind of guy that will take full responsibility if things go wrong, I am still unsure if he can adjust how he wants to run this offense, whether it's pounding a run game that just doesn't work, whether it's mixing in play action way more than we did last season, whether it's using modern NFL concepts, right? Like we know that nickel is basically the base defense in the NFL now. Why? Because it's a passing league, because you need faster players on the field. That's not optimal against the Lions. Last season, you could have stayed in your base 4-3 pretty much the whole game. That's not okay. We need to have an offense that actually tests defenses X's and O's wise. And I am concerned that if things go poorly, we may still believe, listen, this is my vision and I still believe in it. That's what concerns me. Because he had enough belief in the way he wanted to do things to can a wildly experienced coordinator in Lynn and completely take the reins himself without the experience, and then double down this offseason. He could have went out and replaced Lynn this offseason. He didn't. He took Ben Johnson from in-house and he said, me and Ben are going to do this. Ben and I are going to run this offense. He doubled down on the decision he made last year. I'm not saying that it's going to fail. I hope it doesn't. I hope he grows into it. I hope Ben Johnson's a genius. People cannot speak higher of Ben Johnson. Now, nobody in the organization is going to come out and say, wow, that's kind of weird. I'm not sure if he should have been given the job. That doesn't happen. But people speak very highly in and around the team about Ben Johnson. Maybe he's a hidden gem and maybe he's going to be awesome. But I'll believe it when I see it. I have to see it. And if we don't, you have to move on next season and get a real offensive coordinator and bring him in. You have to.
So I'm going to challenge you to give the 3-strike approach this season with the Lions. And after the first bad call that is made, not entirely write them off. Because you tend to jump to conclusions as well and assume that because they've made one bad play call, they're going to continue to make bad play call after bad play
call.
Nobody
ever calls a perfect game or even a perfect series, really.
No, I know, because nobody's perfect.
It's all in the aggregate. It's
context matters.
Mostly conceptual.
Right, for sure.
Concepts matter, right? Like it's not even just sequencing and play call to play call, which matters, of course. Sequencing is very important, but conceptually, what are we doing? What are we doing to push teams? What are we doing so that we're not predictable? What are we doing so that opposing defenses are not calling out the play that we're about to run, like what happened in the Joe Lombardi and Bob Cooter days, right? We all remember how bad that was. Yes, what are we doing? I'll harp on it. How much play action are we running? Especially for a team that likes to run the ball as much as we do.
With a legitimate dynamic running game.
I am not at all exaggerating this number. At least 3/4 of our passes should come from play action. It should. I don't need a lot of just drop back, pure no movement sets. I don't need it. And they don't all have to be heavy. They don't have to be a ton of bootlegs. But there needs to be some kind of fake or misdirection on at least 3/4 of our pass plays. There has to be.
Well, here's the deal. At the end of the day, they have added pieces on offense that should make them more conceptual with speed, pushing the defense, stretching the defense, which we know if you can take tops off defenses, then that's going to open up things in the run game. And hopefully adjustments are made, because a sign of a good coach is you coach to your players. You don't coach to your program, right? You get the athletes that you have and you adjust based on those athletes. Here's the ultimate, right, Paul? There's something different about this team. And we'll see what's exactly. And we will see, hopefully, and we'll continue to buy into that hope. You less so than everybody else in Detroit, but you'll still at least buy in until you can't buy in anymore for the 2022 Detroit Lions. We're not going to call them sleepers. We're not going to call them surprising. We're just going to call them hopeful. We're hopeful for the season, and we're excited to see what happens.
You know, it's funny to me. So many people have bought into the Lions this offseason, both fans and media. At this point, I don't know that you can call them sleepers anymore, because nobody's sleeping on this team as far as to expectation, right? Like, if you polled fans right now, over under Vegas is 6.5 wins, we're going to be 80%, I think, on the over. We should run that poll actually this week, because I would like to hear the numbers on that.
That actually would be a good idea.
I bet media too. A lot of them would be, again, in that same, putting the Lions over probably at a 70+% clip. At that point, you're kind of no longer a sleeper. When everyone believes that you have a chance, you're not really a sleeper anymore. You're a trendy pick, as we alluded to at the beginning of
the pick. And that's
and listen,
the thing, right?
Not a pick to win the Super Bowl or win the division, just a pick to be a team that is an 8-9 win team and maybe could flirt with a playoff spot if a lot of things go right. Which is kind of where you had them at 8 wins.
I did.
Right? And you could see them at 9 wins. It wouldn't shock you. So you are closer to that end of the spectrum, whereas I had them at 6 wins.
Right. So you're closer to Vegas. So this is why it's perfect, right? When the media in Vegas are at odds, we have both sides of the argument covered here. That's why you should watch Beyond the Box, because you will get all of the arguments that you need to carry you through your week when it comes to football. That is going to do it for us tonight. We're looking forward to that 2022 Detroit Lions football season. Paul to see what he can complain about, me to see what I can be hopeful about, and whether or not either of those things come true, we will be here to talk you through the season, whether it's needed for therapy or celebration. We will be here, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. He's Paul Rochon. I'm AJ Riley. We'll see you on Beyond the Box next week. Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on